So this is my brand new ryobi portable palm router. And I guess the first step is to see if it works. Wow, that's actually really quiet. That's pretty nice. Anyways, so what we're gonna be doing is building basically a fake domino, one of those loose tenon joinery machines. So my idea is to basically use this as stock, more or less, and kind of slide it back and forth and use the in-out part of this cylinder to kind of create that oblong slot. So the first thing we need to do is right here, it's got this clamp mechanism, and behind it is this micro adjust little screw, this half nut that locks on here. I need to get rid of this. So let's take this out. So this is the base, and we'll just take this out because we're not going to need this micro adjust at all. And I really hope I don't get a spring in the face because of this. And hopefully, spring. So I want to accomplish the plunge in and out with just sliding this in the housing. So first thing to do is to loosen this. So you see that clamps it. I can't really slide it all that well. So we're just going to back this nut off a little bit. Okay, it's a little tight near the bottom. Maybe I can just paste wax this a bit and it'll slide a little more, but there is some good movement so far. The next step is going to be going inside and designing up something, taking all these measurements and accomplish what we need it to. So it's going to need to be able to slide back and forth, and it's going to need a fence on the front to keep it held down, just like a biscuit joiner or the Festool Domino. Please don't sue. Actually, scratch that. Before we do that, we also need to take off this plastic bit here because that's going to interfere with it sliding back and forth. So this is what I came up with. We have the router right here. Let me just move this out of the way. And you can see the base plate is this big square piece right here, and it's being held down by these two little strips of 1/4 inch material here and here. And this is our pocket for it to slide back and forth. I'll show you that. See how this pocket is bigger than the square base plate? It'll slide like that. And this is the router bit that's still stuck in here. And then over here, we have just a handle for you to grab when you're attaching it to a piece of wood. We have slots on the side on these triangular pieces. That'll allow for this fence to go up and down to change the height or the centering of the tenon in your work. And simple as that. It's basically a pocket, 2 pieces of wood, some braces, some wing nuts, and that's it. Let's get to it. So I've got my plans all drawn up. You see these pieces right here, they're going to be cut up out of this 1/4 inch material, and then these 2 pieces will be made out of this 3/4 inch oak veneer plywood material. And I see a common dimension right now is 5.5. So I'm going to go ahead and set my rip fence on my table saw, get those cut up, and then over at the table and miter saw, I'll cut up the rest of these pieces and we'll meet you back. So everything's cut to size. The next step is going to be cutting out this pocket where the router is going to be able to slide back and forth inside here. So I'm going to go ahead, mark out that square, and I'm going to start in the center and work my way from the outside. I have a 1/4 inch spiral upcut bit set to roughly the right depth, but we're going to dial it in at the exact thickness of this on the scrap piece of plywood here. So this is all carved out. Let's try this fit. All right, not really any play in there and it's sliding pretty good. So next we're going to keep it in place with these 2 strips on top and bottom. I'm going to drill a small pilot hole and then attach them with these teeny tiny screws, about 4 or 5 screws along each rail. That's a little snug over here, so clearly this side is a little bit higher than this side or something's going on. So when I go to take this apart to wax everything, I'll just make sure that I sand this side a little bit. So I actually have to flip this around so I can drill the holes because this thing was in the way. So this part is done. I'll take this apart, give it a light sanding, wax everything, and hopefully everything should be moving nice and smooth. It's simple to use the paste wax. You just rub it on, wait a few moments, rub it off.
Wax on, wax off.
Wow, does that slide super smooth. Okay, let's go ahead and reassemble this, see how she works. So now that this is all set up, the next step is to cut the slot in the bottom there. So we've got our bit installed, our 1/4 inch upcut bit, and we're just gonna lower this with it on, go back and forth and cut that slot. Over here at the table saw, I have my miter gauge with a sacrificial fence, and this is the piece that's going to have the little alignment strip in it. So we need to nibble out a little bit of material so we can actually see that strip. So all I'm gonna do is I've marked out a 1-inch section. I'm gonna nibble away at this height, few passes, and it'll all be gone. And then that's where we're gonna put our plastic piece with the line in the middle so we can align this over our joint. So this is the piece that's going to rest up against your work. You'll be able to see your little line sight down through here. And I'm going to do that with this plastic hockey card holder or Pokemon card holder, depending on how old you are. And what I'm going to do is trim this to a little rectangle. It's going to overlap and get glued down with some CA glue. And then I'm going to use that pattern to cut out from this the negative little image around it. This is just a peel and stick disc sander that I have extra. And I'm just going to stick this down with that cutout of the rectangle. And these are both about the same thickness, so there's no need to like router in like a pocket or something for this clear piece. They'll both be at the same height, and this is going to add a lot of grip. So when you go to put it down on your work, it's not going to shift around on you. So let's get that done. Now I'm not going to worry about these pieces that are missing. It's fine, there's lots of grip here. That looks like it's going to work awesome. So we'll let that dry and then we'll mark our line when we're all said and done. You can see I have my 2 corner gussets here, and they both need slots for the movement up and down to set the height of your fence. So I've already marked them out. And I'm going to drill a 1/4 inch Forstner bit hole through both of them at once in these 4 locations, and then we'll open up these slots. I was thinking about using the router table to open up these slots, but I've decided I'm just going to drill a few extra holes and use a file to widen them out. Since my camera wasn't recording, let's go over what I just did. So this is how this is going to be set up. The router is going to be out the back. And then right here is going to be our height adjustment. You see we've got our clear piece, which is going to be our viewing window for our line. And this is going to need to slide up and down like this. So all I did was I took a piece of scrap from that offcut that we cut the 5.5 width, and I set my piece up right here. I set up a square to make sure it was square. I put some glue here and 2 crown staples on each side. And then now, now I'm just letting it sit in the clamps to dry up. Ta-da, you're all caught up. Stupid camera. So currently this is all clamped together just so I can go ahead and align to my lowest point. You see there's very little material between this adjustable fence and where the bit's going to be coming through. And now I'm going to be using a 1/4 inch brad point bit just to mark the center of where these need to go. This again is at the lowest point of adjustment. The fence can only go up from here. And what I've got here are these bolts that are double-sided. This side will bite into the wood. It's a very coarse thread, and the fine thread over here is a 1/4 20. That, in use with a combination of these wing nuts, which are also 1/4 20, is how we're going to clamp this down in all 4 positions so the fence doesn't move when in operation. So I'll mark my centers right here. Just spin it around and push down, and we'll drill out the smaller holes, which will allow this to really bite in and these won't ever move. Now you have to drive that in using a jam nut, which is just 2 nuts that you've tightened together, and I'll use my impact driver to drive that in. So as much as I want to tell you guys that everything is good, hunky-dory, we're moving on to the next step, I cannot. Because when I drilled these 4 bolts, I didn't really take into account the bit wandering, and I kind of drilled this direction. So as you can see right here, we kind of drilled right into the plastic. So this can't move anymore, which is kind of an issue. So I'm going to go ahead and remake this entire base plate, and when I go to drill these, make sure I'm drilling more towards the fence area and not towards the router. It's unfortunate, but through movie magic, I'll meet you back here in just a second. And just like that, we have a new one. Much better. The last thing to do is to add some sort of handle to the front of this. You don't need to add a handle. You can just put your palm right here and everything should be fine as you go to use it. It shouldn't move around on you, but I found this piece of maple dowel that I want to attach to the front here, and I'm going to raise it up a little bit with some 1/4 inch plywood as risers on either side. Those will just get stapled and glued on, and that'll complete this project. So the last thing I'm going to do is mark a little line for alignment when using the tool. So I know I have an opening here of 1.25 inches, so I'll just find my center that way and mark it with the utility knife. Then I'll just extend the line with my combination square. Now I've got my black Sharpie, and I'm just going to color in the line and then wipe away the extra, and this is going to leave a very crisp line. So on your piece of wood, you'll make a mark like this across both. Then you'll line up your line with the mark on top of it, just like that. And simple as that. Same thing on the other side. Line it up to that mark. You can see there's my pencil mark, there's my sight line. Easy peasy. Now that I've made my loose tenon stock by just cutting up some scrap maple and rounding over the edges, I can just put glue in both the joints, stick it in there, clamp it up overnight, and it's good to go. See you on the next one.
Often imitated, never duplicated.